The restaurant was buzzing that Friday night, glasses clinking, laughter echoing, and the smell of sizzling steaks drifting through the air. But in the back corner, at a small table near the window, sat a man who looked painfully out of place. His name was Mr. Allen, the janitor at a large corporate office downtown. He wore his one good shirt, clean, pressed, but a little too big at the collar. His hands were rough, calloused from years of scrubbing floors and hauling trash bags. He kept fiddling with the silverware, eyes darting nervously toward the entrance. He didn't know he was walking straight into a setup. Across town, a group of junior employees from the very same office were snickering among themselves. They had cooked up what they thought was a hilarious prank, setting up the janitor on a blind date with one of their friends, someone who had no idea who she'd be meeting. They thought it would be funny to watch a lowly janitor stumble through dinner with a sophisticated young woman. And so, when Claire, the date, walked into the restaurant, the group watched from another table, hiding behind menus, stifling their laughter. Claire was beautiful, dressed elegantly, her heels clicking softly as she walked toward the table. She froze when she saw Alan rise awkwardly to greet her. His shirt was slightly mismatched, his tie a little crooked, but the warmth in his smile was unmistakable. "Hi, I'm Alan," he said, offering his hand. Claire hesitated but shook it, sliding into her seat. She glanced around, confusion flashing in her eyes as she realized several people were watching. Something about this didn't feel right. At first, the conversation was stilted. Claire gave short, polite answers, while Alan tried his best to make her comfortable. He told her about his love for reading history books, his dream of one day traveling to Washington, D.C. to see the monuments in person, and how he spent weekends fixing up old bikes to give to neighborhood kids who couldn't afford them. Slowly, Claire began to soften. The rough exterior melted away, and what she saw was a man full of kindness, humility, and quiet dignity. But at the other table, the pranksters were giggling louder, whispering cruel jokes. One of them muttered just loud enough for Alan to hear, "Unbelievable. She's really sitting there with the janitor." Alan's face flushed. His fork trembled in his hand. He had worked hard his whole life, but he had never been mocked like this, openly, cruelly, as if he were less than human. He glanced at Claire, ready to excuse himself, to spare her the embarrassment. And that's when it happened. The restaurant doors opened, and in walked Mr. Hughes, the CEO of the company. A tall, silver-haired man in his 60s, Hughes commanded respect the moment he stepped into a room. The pranksters straightened in their seats, trying not to be noticed. But Hughes didn't glance their way. His eyes went straight to the back corner, straight to Alan. "Alan?" Hughes called out, smiling warmly. The entire room froze. Claire looked at Alan in shock as the CEO of the company strode over and shook the janitor's hand with genuine respect. "Ladies and gentlemen," Hughes said, turning slightly toward the nearby tables, "this man right here is one of the finest people I know. Most of you only see him pushing a mop, but let me tell you something. When my wife was ill last year and I was too busy running the company, Alan was the one who brought groceries to my house every week. When our building lost heat in the middle of winter, it was Alan who stayed overnight to make sure every system was back online by morning. He's not just a janitor, he's the heart of our company." Silence fell. Forks paused midair. The smirks on the pranksters' faces disappeared. Claire's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Alan, who sat there stunned, humility etched across his face. Hughes clapped a hand on his shoulder. "Alan, I'll never forget the kindness you've shown me and my family. And if anyone here fails to see your worth, then that says more about them than it does about you." The restaurant was so quiet you could hear the faint hum of the air conditioner. And then slowly a round of applause began. Diners at nearby tables joined in, nodding toward Alan with newfound respect. For the first time that evening, Alan didn't feel out of place. He didn't feel small. He sat a little taller, his hands steady, his eyes shining with gratitude. Claire reached across the table, her hand brushing his. "I think I'd really like to hear more about those bikes you fix," she whispered, her voice warm. The pranksters, red-faced and ashamed, quickly paid their bill and slipped out, unable to meet anyone's gaze. And that night, something unexpected happened. What began as a cruel joke turned into the beginning of a genuine connection. Claire and Alan talked until the restaurant lights dimmed. She learned about his dreams, his struggles, and his simple but powerful philosophy. If you can make someone's life a little easier, why wouldn't you? The weeks later, Claire would tell her friends that it was the most meaningful date she'd ever been on. Not because of the setting or the food, but because she saw a true character shine through, character that no prank or title could diminish. And the employees who had tried to humiliate Alan, they learned a lesson they'd never forget. In the end, it wasn't their laughter that filled the room that night, it was silence. The heavy, humbling silence that comes when people realize they've misjudged someone's worth. Alan never asked for recognition, but he got something far greater: respect, friendship, and the possibility of love. Because sometimes the world needs reminding, titles don't define us, kindness does. After that night, Alan went back to work at the office, quietly doing what he had always done, fixing what was broken, cleaning what others left behind, and helping wherever he was needed. But something had changed. People no longer just walked past him without a glance. They greeted him, shook his hand, even stopped to ask about his day. Respect had replaced indifference. Claire kept in touch. At first it was casual, sharing a coffee during her lunch break, sending him articles about places he dreamed of visiting. But slowly she realized she looked forward to those moments more than anything else. His honesty, his kindness, his way of noticing the small details that others ignored. It wasn't just refreshing, it was rare. One evening, months later, she invited him to meet her family. They were surprised at first, unsure of who he was, but by the end of dinner, her father was laughing at Alan's stories, and her mother was asking him for advice on fixing an old garden fence. They saw what she had seen, a man whose heart was bigger than any title. Meanwhile, the pranksters at work carried a quiet shame. They couldn't erase what they had done, but they learned something important. Some even approached Alan to apologize. True to his nature, he accepted with grace, reminding them gently, "We all make mistakes. What matters is how we grow from them." Alan never let the attention change him. He still arrived early every morning, still stayed late when no one else wanted to, still brought his homemade sandwiches to share with the security guard on night shift. But now people noticed, and more than that, they appreciated him. Claire and Alan continued to see each other, their bond deepening with every conversation, every small kindness. What had started as a cruel setup had turned into something real and lasting. And though Alan never sought recognition, he gained something far greater than applause. He gained love, respect, and a reminder that no act of kindness is ever wasted, because in the end, it wasn't a prank that defined that night. It was the moment when truth was revealed, when silence filled the room, and when everyone finally saw the man they had overlooked all along. And for Alan, that was enough.